All right, we are back for another night of recapping the ACC on the Sidelines with Sav. I am your host, Savannah, and tonight I have a very special guest with me, Scott Wachenheim. I didn't even ask him if I pronounced his name right. If I'm wrong, correct me. Who has been a coach? He's been a head coach. He's been a lot of places. So please introduce yourself and welcome to the show tonight.
Thanks, Savannah. It's Wachenheim, and don't worry about it. That's why I go by Walk. But
I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even ask him before it started. That's so bad.
It's okay. So my coaching career, you asked me to tell them about that. So
yeah,
I went to the United States Air Force Academy, played offensive line there. And when I graduated, I did my 5 years in the Air Force. But my first job as a second lieutenant was as an assistant football coach, a graduate assistant football coach there at Air Force. So when my 5 years were in the Air Force were up, I decided I wanted to be a football coach. And I called my head coach, who was at Air Force, who was now at Arkansas, Ken Hatfield. And I went to be a GA at Arkansas. And then I went from Arkansas to the University of Colorado with Bill McCartney. And then I went to some stomping grounds you're familiar with, Utah State, where I was the tight ends coach and recruiting coordinator. That was my first full-time job. And then from Utah State, I went to Rice University for 12 years as the O-line coach and then O-line coach and offensive coordinator. When Coach Hatfield retired, I went to Liberty University as the offensive coordinator. And then I got a break. I went to the Washington Redskins as a tight end coach. Coached another Logan, Utah named Chris Cooley there. Spent 11 months in the NFL, not for long. Coach Zorn got fired. And then I went to the University of Virginia, where I spent 5 seasons before I left there to go to VMI, was the head coach there for 8 years. We did some great things there. And then I stepped away from coaching, and now I coach my 4 grandsons. And, the oldest is 5, the youngest is 1. And, we're pretty good at kicking the ball around in the backyard.
I love it. That's awesome. I'm going to go off script really quick because I love talking to coaches. That's like my favorite thing. What would you say was the biggest difference between coaching in college football and the NFL that like a common fan wouldn't realize or know?
How quickly the NFL players can pick up a new concept. So you can put in a new play the week of a game in the NFL and the players run it pretty well on game day. In college, usually it takes 2-3 weeks to get a play that you want to install new, revved up. And, if you think of it this way, the youngest player in the NFL is a 5th-year senior college player. And so, it's just a huge difference between coaching an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old at the youngest. So that's quick. Just how quickly NFL players can pick up new schemes and schematics and execute them at a high level.
That's so interesting because I didn't even know that. Honestly, that's such a good point, though. Now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, one more question, then I swear we'll get into recapping the ACC. What is the best lesson that being a football coach has ever taught you in life?
Resilience. You can be the best coach, but if you don't have players, you're not going to win. And it's all about the players and helping them get better, not only on the football field, but off the field. But you're going to have, no matter how good your coach you are, you're going to have some difficult years. And you can see that in college football right now. When you don't have a quarterback, it's very difficult to win college games. And it doesn't matter. I mean, just look at UVA. They were rolling along. Starting quarterback gets hurt. And, the Wake Forest beats them, next week. So just resilience, fighting through adversity, keep going, trusting the process, knowing that you have the right system in place, believing in yourself. Don't worry about what others think about you. Worry about what God thinks about you. And, that's what you got to do. So that's the one word I would say, resilience.
I love it. I love it. We might have to do another pod where we just talk about things like that, because I could talk
Anytime.
about
I'm free. I got time. So if your listeners increase from this one, definitely I'll come back on.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, let's do what we are technically here to do, which I'm sure we'll talk more about these kind of things in between. But let's recap what was it? Week 10 of the ACC. We had like some primetime slots this week. So let's start with some smaller games. We usually, or I guess smaller, but like the ones that weren't as crazy. We usually have a Friday night ACC game, but we actually didn't this week. So let's start with Syracuse traveling to number 18 ranked Miami. Miami ended up winning. It was 38-10. Carson Beck did okay. He threw for about 250 yards. But it was an interesting game, and I definitely have thoughts. Let's hear yours first, though.
Well, I think Miami, everyone talks about the offense because of Carson Beck and the transfer his transfer there, but the defense has really been what's been shining for Miami. And Corey Heatherman, who was the defensive coordinator at JMU when I was a head coach at VMI for a little bit, we met in the playoffs, is just a fantastic coach. So I believe Miami's number one in total and scoring defense in the ACC. And Corey's doing a great job there. And, Fran Brown at Syracuse, what a great job a year ago. Not as much this year. Did he forget to coach? No, he's probably got a different team, So I think that Miami's just better than Syracuse, and Coach Brown's trying to turn it around. But I do think Miami's defense is huge, and, that will be a big factor in their game coming up this coming week too.
Yes, this coming week, their defense hopefully doesn't show up for personal reason.
Yeah, I know it. They got NC State, the Wolfpack, which that's probably your game of the week, and that will be an interesting game. NC State's going to have to run the football to win, so we'll see.
Yes, no, definitely. We will talk about that more because that is my game of the week. Thoughts on this? It wasn't this game, but the prior week, Carson Beck in his post-game presser, and this does have a point because he acted very interestingly in this game as well, had blamed the offense on the offensive play calling. What are your thoughts on a player blaming a coach in his post-game presser about the game?
I don't think anybody should blame anybody. First of all, I think the head coach has got to take accountability for the offense, defense, and special teams, and he's got to take the brunt of any loss. And then you got to deflect the victories on the player's performance. And, you hope the players mimic that. And, I think a lot of times, I think young men forget that they don't have to answer the question. They can say no comment, or just because you're asked a question, you can answer a totally different question, and then the next question comes up and you can alleviate that. So I think it's a lesson from Carson to learn from. Hey, the week before he said something about a receiver, this week about a coach. But as a coach, I'm very forgiving. I mean, that's a young man. He's not in front of the microphone very often. He made a mistake. Probably would call him in my office and say, hey, Carson, you answered the question this way. Do you think you could have answered it better? Like, if you had more time, how would you answer the question now? And then, get the offensive coordinator in there and let the two of them meet and make sure everything's good. And then, hey, let's move on. We got bigger battles to go take on, and we're on to the Wolfpack.
Absolutely. No, I just thought it was interesting because I totally agree with everything that you've said. And in this last week in this game, the Syracuse did keep it close in the first half. And in the first half, Carson Beck was like very visibly frustrated on the sideline. And of course, they're showing it and the media is feeding into it. So I wasn't at the game. I don't see it all, but it was just interesting. And they were like, nobody's talking to anybody. Nobody's hyping anybody up. No one's trying to console him. And I was just like, oh, this is interesting. This is very odd that the media is shining a light on that. Just how it goes.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. As a head coach, you have to understand the camera's on you and everybody's looking at you on your team. And you got to be able to not get too high, too low. Otherwise, it's going to come back to haunt you. And then I do think as a head coach and as assistant coaches, you have to have a sensitivity to your players. And while you do want to be a player-led team and player-led teams win championships, you also have to be the adult and be able to go over there and manage a situation that isn't going the way you want it to. That's what coaching's all about. So I would put that more on the coaches than on Carson Beck, for the sideline stuff. And, games are tough to win. I mean, people, you can be the number one team in the nation and highly favored, but it's hard to win a game. It's hard to win a game on the road. It's hard to win a conference game. So you just can't go in there and say, "Hey, man, we should dominate this week." You gotta tell them, like, this is going to be a 4-quarter battle, and if we win it early, great. But you got to be prepared to take this to overtime.
100%. If there was like one thing that I wish the common fan could understand from like your perspective or my perspective, is how freaking hard it is to win each and every week. Like, people just don't get how hard it is to go 1-0 every week. They really don't.
No, your team changes every week. You got injuries. You've got players that have personal issues, or coaches that have personal issues
Yeah.
going on. I mean, your play caller's son might be sick and he's coming to coach the game. He might not be quite as sharp that week. You have injuries. You have kids playing hurt. Maybe it's a big test week. I've always coached at academic schools,
Yeah.
like, Virginia, where your dad and I coached. And what if they have 3 papers due and two tests that week? I mean, they're just not as in tune to football that week. So there's a lot going on in people's lives, and each week it's a totally different team, so you never know.
Yeah. Also 18 to 23-year-old boys are emotional, not in a bad way, but like, life happens. They could also broke up with their girlfriend or something. So
Absolutely.
you're 100%
Yeah.
right.
I mean, they're very emotional. I was too. 60-year-old men are emotional. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, you could have a fight with your wife. I mean, there's so many things going on, and the fans don't know, and they expect perfection, but I don't blame them. They
Yeah.
should. And
Yeah.
but as a coach, you got to be above that and keep your team focused. And I think Nick Saban said it best: focus on the process and keep rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As we keep rolling, let's talk about SMU at Boston College. SMU did actually dominate this game pretty much the entire time, which doesn't happen often. They came away from Boston College with a win, 45-13. Kevin Jennings threw for 326 yards. TJ Harding rushed for 130, and Ymir Knight had over 150 yards receiving. It was a great day for SMU.
Yeah, Rhett Lashley's doing a great job. The quarterback for SMU is really a true dual threat. They're coming off a huge win the week before, and then to go on the road and beat Boston College, that is a tall task. Great job by Rhett Lashley and his crew getting that done. Casey Woods, the offensive coordinator, who I think is the front runner for the University of Alabama Birmingham job. Bill O'Brien, tremendous coach with a lot of accolades. Don't know what's going on there, but obviously Boston College is struggling. Hopefully he can right the ship, have something positive happen before the end of the season. But I think you really got to take your hats off to the SMU Mustangs. They could be the spoiler in the ACC race. I mean, who knows who's going to win it? Who knows who's going to the playoffs? But SMU could be that team if they keep rolling.
Yeah, 100%. I think the way that they have shown who they are after the loss to Wake Forest by, like you said, winning against Miami and then going on the road again, changing 3 time zones and beating Boston College has really impressed me, the way that they've responded, for sure. Now moving on to 2 teams that one has really impressed me, actually, for me calling them a bottom feeder of the ACC going into this year. And then one has really not impressed me, and that is Stanford impressing me at North Carolina. UNC did win this game 20-15, but that is only UNC's second ACC win of the season. Elijah Brown threw for 284 yards. The Stanford quarterback, they still came away with a loss. Micah Ford was the leading rusher and had 68 yards, also a Stanford player. And finally, we had Caden High, who was the leading receiver, also a Stanford player, who had 102 receiving yards. What are your thoughts on that game, Bill Belichick, all the things?
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts. Bill Belichick coming back to college, I find that interesting. I look at Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, who's back in the NFL, and Nick Saban, who's doing ESPN. And, in my mind, I go, who's happier? And I think Nick Saban's the happiest of them all. But kudos to Bill. The season started off rough, and he found a way to win this one. Stanford, it's tough to fly all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. So I think it's harder traveling west to east than east to west to play, just in my experience as a coach and as a player even at Air Force. But, Stanford's going to be okay. Andrew Luck being back there as a general manager to run things, I think is good. They just got $50 million pledged by an alumni to their athletic program. So I think that, like Texas Tech, when you get that kind of money, you can go ahead, get in the portal, or even high school, buy yourself some pretty good players. Stanford's in a beautiful part of California, great education. And I think once you get somebody to Stanford, they'll want to stay and get that degree. So I think Stanford will move forward now that they have the money to compete, and they'll be able to get better players and get going. And obviously, when Jim Harbaugh and David Shaw had it at his prime, Stanford was a pretty doggone good program. So I think Stanford's a program on the rise. I just don't know how North Carolina, a 74-year-old man recruits. Recruiting's harder. As you know, as a daughter of a coach, the season ends. It's not like you get to relax. You're gone away from home as a coach more during recruiting than you are during the season. So it's hard. I wouldn't want to get on an airplane as much as Belichick has to, although recruiting has changed with the portal and transfer players being a bigger role. But when you used to go from player to player's house and high school and home to home, that was pretty taxing. So it'll be interesting, what goes on at UNC and how long he stays there and the whole ball of wax. But good win for North Carolina. I mean, every time you can win, the better. And congratulations to Coach Belichick and his staff.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. Another thing that people don't realize, people are like, oh, well, you must see your dad when it's like not football season. And I'm like, wait, no, like when it's not football season is when I actually don't see him. Now I see him. Now I see him more than I want to. Now I see him every weekend because I go to his games.
Right.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm only 30, about to be 31, and traveling the amount that even my dad does, I won't expose his age, but he's in his 50s, seems taxing on him. And so, yes, being 75 and doing that, or 74, I apologize for giving Coach Belichick the extra year, but seems like it's really tough. So
yeah, I think it's easier. He probably doesn't drive anywhere. He probably if he's not flying on the school plane, he's flying first class, which makes it a little nicer. But I still think it's taxing. And I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell how long he sticks at North Carolina. That, to me, was an interesting step by him.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree on Stanford. I think they're a program trending in the right direction. And, of course, in this day and age of the NIL portal, all the things, having money pledged is never a bad thing. And definitely, yes, definitely, as we know, program changing as it has been for Texas Tech this year. And to be honest, has been for Virginia. We'll get into that game next. Wake Forest travels to Virginia, a team who also has pledged money, and it really was totally working. And ended up losing to Wake Forest 16-9. Obviously, Chandler Morris went down this game, devastating. Scott Stadium was sold out. It looked like it was a very fun game. People don't know this because Scott Stadium isn't bumping very often. But when it's bumping, Scott Stadium's a fun place to go to a college football game.
Oh, when Scott Stadium is sold out, it is legit. I mean, but
Yes.
Very rarely, even when you win, very rarely. And, when you played Virginia Tech, when I was there, Virginia Tech would have more home fans than we would in Scott Stadium. But I didn't know Virginia had money. When I'm done commenting, I think you got to tell me where that money came from. Because, when I was there, we had the worst facilities in the ACC by far. Oh, yeah. So recruiting was very difficult. I was recruiting a young man, and he just had come from Georgia when I was at UVA. And, we brought him around in the spring, took him on a tour and everything. And he said, Coach, you're my favorite coach. I want to come play for you, but your facilities, they aren't it. And so, I know Bronco, I think, left because the pledge of the facilities were going to be delayed. But kudos to Tony Elliott. What a great season they've had so far. And I'm glad Carla Williams got the facilities built. And if they got enough money, sure, John Tudor Jones or John Paul Jones, whichever, they got money there. If they're giving it for football and not just basketball, that's awesome. And it just goes to show you when you lose a starting quarterback, it's tough to win football games unless you got two, and it's hard to get two. But what a job by Coach Dykert, I think you say his name, at Wake Forest. What a great job he's doing there. Wake is not an easy place to win. A lot of coaches have won, Jim Grobe and Clausen and a couple others. But what a good job he's doing there in his first year there at Wake. And, they're playing spoiler here in this ACC race. And, hopefully Chandler Morris could come back. But, those concussions are pretty tough. And I think he had a pretty severe one. So, he could be out 2, 3, 4 weeks, or he could be back this week. So time will tell. But I got to see him play. What a stud, man! Golly, he reminds me of the Diego Pavila and Haynes King at Georgia Tech. Those guys. He's just like them.
Yeah. No, it's just a bummer. I hate injuries no matter the program. It's harder to swallow them at programs that have really meant something to you in your life. So definitely a bummer. Yes, I think Wake is doing an incredible job. I so badly wanted to pick them for the upset, but they did horribly the week before at Florida State. I've been high on Wake Forest all season. I think that Damon Claiborne is one of the best backs in the ACC. Obviously, the ACC is kind of deep with running backs this year, but he's one of the best, and they have been really good. I went to my dad's game when they played at Wake and saw how good of a team they were. And so I'm actually I'm surprised in the sense that I think that if Chandler Morris wouldn't have gotten injured, UVA would have absolutely won the game. But I'm not surprised that Wake kept it close. They have been a team that have subtly impressed me this year. So just interesting. Again, congrats to them. I hope that Chandler Morris, I'm sure we both hope that Chandler Morris is okay and can return hopefully before the Virginia Tech football game. Oh man. All right, let's talk about the very, very shockingly bottom dwellers of the ACC. Florida State at Clemson. Clemson wins at home 24-10. Tommy Castellanos had a game, threw for 250 yards, and they still got a loss. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah. So first of all, Dabo's, keeping the team together and giving them something to play for. And, it's always good to beat Florida State. And, Florida State beat a very good Alabama game in the opening game. And opening games are always tricky, but I don't really know what's happened there. But it's interesting, Clemson offense is interesting. Tony Elliott, since he's left, the offense has not done well. They promoted Brandon Streeter to OC, who coached with me at Liberty. I was the offensive coordinator. He was the quarterback's coach. And, Brandon has had a great career calling plays. He took over at Liberty when I left to go to the Redskins. And, he called plays at Richmond before going to Clemson and, as a quarterback coach and then calling plays. But Dabo let him go. He brings in, Garrett Riley, he was a guru calling plays at TCU. And all of a sudden they can't score and they got good players. So, I just wonder what's going on offensively, if there's too many chefs in the kitchen, or I don't know. It's hard to tell what's happening with them offensively. They're not playing as well. I really like Coach Allen, who's their defensive coordinator. My son GA'd for him at Indiana. I hired a couple of guys from his staff, Billy Kosh, who was a receiver coach, OC, now the head coach at Stony Brook, and also Pat Kuntz, who's the defensive line coach at Indiana right now. I think it's a great win for Clemson, tough for Florida State. I really like Mike Norvell's game management. I've watched Florida State play. Mike does a great job of using his timeouts to gain his team possessions. He strategically does a good job in the games I've watched. He might have made some bad ones otherwise, but he does a tremendous job of managing the game and puts his team in position to win. Timely trick plays, timely fourth down decisions. Doesn't get foolish coaches penalties like burning a timeout before 4th and 2. You're going for it, or, let's not call timeout, or if you're going to try and draw them off sides and kick the field goal, then try and draw them off sides and take the 5-yard penalty, then kick the field goals. Don't burn a timeout. He doesn't do that stuff. So I don't know what's happening at Florida State. Great place, Tallahassee, to play and recruit to. And, I do think Clemson and FSU being down is the reason the ACC has a negative image in a lot of the, polls, because those are traditionally the top teams. It's kind of like if Alabama is down in the SEC, people start to question if if the SEC is all it is. So anyway, that's what I think. And, I think Clemson needs to finish strong. And, it was good to see Dabo smile this week in his press conference.
Yeah, I hope they get us a win in the win column against the SEC on rivalry week. I really need them to win that one.
South Carolina, Shane Beamer.
Yeah.
Send him back to Virginia Tech, right?
I am surprised that it seems like they're closing it, supposedly, right? This is all hearsay. They're closing in on James Franklin to go to Virginia Tech, which it's just crazy to me that Shane Beamer is maybe he's not interested. Maybe Virginia Tech's not interested, but that seems like the obvious choice to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I think James Franklin is a great choice. He's a great recruiter. He did a great job at Vanderbilt. He did a great job at Penn State. They just, a lot was expected this year, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. But I don't know. Coach Beamer, he may be getting tired of South Carolina. They may get tired of him. James Franklin ends up going to Arkansas, and Shane Beamer's now the coach at Virginia Tech. Who knows? We'll find out. I mean, I think some people only want college football season to end because they like the coaching carousel better. So
no coaches' families feel that way. That's for sure.
No, not unless you're moving up. I mean, when you get the big bump, that's always nice. But
yeah,
moving's hard on a coach's family. People don't understand.
No. People don't get it. And then I'm like, oh, I love residence in Marriott. And they're like, why? And I'm like, oh, I lived in one my whole senior year of high school by myself.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me. My youngest son went to 3 high schools in 1 year.
Oh, yeah. No, that doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah. Just funny. It would be funny if James Franklin did end up at Virginia Tech, because as I'm sure you know, a lot of his coaching staff is UVA, not just UVA football alums, UVA football legends in Anthony Poindexter and Marcus Hagans. And so it would be hilarious to see if he took them and if they worked at Virginia Tech. So.
Yeah, when I was at UVA coaching the O-line, Dex was our defensive backs coach, and Marcus was our receivers coach, and 2 not only great coaches but great men.
Yes.
Really ambassadors for the school. I think it'd be hard for them to go to Virginia Tech, the 2 of those guys, and they're good enough coaches they wouldn't have to.
Yeah, that's hilarious. No, just super funny to throw out there and think about. Because, I think about things like my dad coaching at UNC, and I'm like, ooh, that would be really tough for me personally. Too funny. Speaking of coaches, though, and Florida State and the Clemson game, because that's the one we were on, I do think that Mike Norvell, he put together one of my favorite coaching staffs of the offseason. I really like Gus Malzahn. I know that's a hot take and a very controversial, polarizing opinion. I think that Auburn firing him was probably one of the worst moves Auburn has ever made. I also love Herb Hand, obviously the offensive line coach. And so it's a bummer to watch them do poorly, because I think he had one of the best wins in the offseason in coaching staff hires, to be honest. So just a bummer.
Herb Hand's awesome. One of my best friends in coaching, O-line coaches that I would talk to a lot. Really like Herb. Also, when Twitter was really popular, had the best Twitter site of any coach. But Gus, it definitely looks like a mistake on Auburn's part to let him go. They have not been as good since he's left.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I know people don't love that take, but it's a hill I'm kind of willing to die on.
Yeah, it's not. You got the facts on your side, Savannah. You're good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Most of the ACC played each other this week, so we only have one more game to recap, and that is Cal traveling to number 15, Louisville. Cal ended up winning in overtime, 29-26. JKS popped off, threw for 323 yards. they really just went for it in the overtime, as one would if you are traveling to an away topped 25 ranked team in overtime. You go for the touchdown on fourth down.
Definitely. I mean, it's 4th and 3. You're the underdog. You're on the road. You got a long trip back home. What a great call. Freshman quarterback puts it right on the receiver for the game-winning touchdown. Very similar decision I made. We were at Sanford playing on the road, and it went to overtime. We won the toss, went on defense first. They scored, kicked the extra point. We scored, went for 2, and won the game on a 2-point conversion. And I just, we had a 14-hour bus ride back, and we were out of gas. My best players were with that. So we ended up we decided we'd go for 2, and I was happy with that. Told the players we would do it too, and they were all for it. And we won the game by 1. I think more coaches should make that decision. I think you coach to win. I think you attack. That's why I like Signetti. We're going to attack. We're going to attack. We're going to attack. I like Dan Campbell. We're going for it on 4th down. We didn't come here to tie or play it close. So all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. Unless you're just by far the dominant team, you're delaying the inevitable to tie the game up at that point and play one more play. I mean, you're on the 3-yard line, 4th and 3 from the 3. That's where the 2-point conversion's made anyway. Let's go. And kudos to Coach Wilcox. Really excited that they won that game. I think he's an outstanding football coach, and that was a big win for the Cal Bears.
This is totally unrelated. Did you know that I was a Detroit Lions fan with the Dan Campbell mention? Because I love that.
I did not know you were a Detroit Lions fan. And, I am not a Detroit Lions fan, but I am a Dan Campbell fan. I just like the way he is a head coach, the way he attacks things. Ever since they were on Hard Knocks, I got to see how he did things on Hard Knocks. I became a Dan Campbell fan after watching Hard Knocks and seeing him on the show.
That's so funny. Yeah, speaking of good coaching staffs put together in the offseason, I really thought that Cal did as well with the additions of, oh my gosh, literally everyone. They got Coach Rolovich. I just usually say Coach Rolo. So yeah. Coach Rolovich. They also got Carolina Panthers coach. What is his name? Why can I not think of it?
Was it the head coach?
Yes. Rivera.
Oh, Ron Rivera. Yeah, he's the general manager.
Yeah. I was what is his name? They also put together a really good staff in the offseason. So it's good to see them. I feel like they've been a team that's very inconsistent this year. I've seen some great things. I've seen some not. But I guess overall they're headed in a positive direction. And I think that win sets them up better for playing Stanford, because for a second there, I thought Stanford in the game was a lock, but now I'm more leaning towards, okay, Cal has a chance. So, yeah.
Well, it's good to see Coach Rolo back in coaching.
Yes.
Courageous thing to him to do at Washington State, not getting the COVID vaccine shot. I chose to get it because I wanted to keep coaching as VMI, but, Coach Rolo chose not to. And, looks like maybe based on the research now, he made the right choice, but good to see him back coaching. Sure, he'll get a head coaching opportunity, maybe as soon as this year with all the openings there are. And he certainly did a great job as a head coach at Hawaii and then Washington State.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I lost connection. Continue.
I'm good. I'm done.
Oh, I missed part of it.
What'd you miss? I just said
no, you're good.
Good job at Hawaii and Washington State.
It probably. Oh, perfect. Yes, I think that he will have a chance. Speaking of that and the coaching carousel, what are your thoughts on the coaching carousel that there is this year?
There's a lot of openings, which early, never really seen this many openings this early, and I think that's with the accelerated window of the transfer portal. I'm not a fan of when the transfer portal is. I can't imagine a coach is, especially if you're in the playoffs. And, I don't know how you get a team ready for play and work the transfer portal and work incoming visits and all those things. And I don't know if the players are a fan of just having one transfer portal. So I think there's a lot of revision that needs to go on the college level. I think there should be a 16-team playoff. I think the national championship game should be on January 1st. I think we should do away with conference championships because that's unfair that, a team that doesn't make the conference championship may go over a team that goes to the conference championship game and loses. So just no, let's just take those out. So that's I have a lot of feelings, and I think you need to redo all of FBS football to make it more regional. And I think you need to do away with the money games. I think playing a money game, like nobody wants to see Alabama play Mercer and this year Auburn play Mercer. Nobody wants to see those blowout games. Ole Miss played a Citadel. Come on, let's play real games. And then fans will come to the games. Advertisement dollars will go up, and let the group of five and let the other FCS teams have their own games and their own playoffs and do as such. So I'm on the extreme on that end, but I do think the coaching carousel's early. You got three FCS coaching jobs already open, which is why I don't understand it. Let the coach finish the season. So I think it'd probably be tough to play as a player, although the teams that have interim coaches have stepped it up, but it's tough. I mean, because all those staffs, as they're not only preparing for the game, but they're trying to keep recruits there, and they're trying to do what they can to find out who's getting what job so they can get another job. So
yeah,
a lot going on, a lot of stress in a business that already carries a lot of stress. But
yes.
In the word of Gary Patterson, who's one of my favorite all-time coaches are just highly paid migrant workers. So at least we're compensated for everything we go through.
Yes, because people love to point out the compensation and say,
yes,
you're not allowed to have feelings because of the compensation. You're not allowed to have anything because of the compensation. I don't feel bad for you because you get $15 million to be sucky at your job. People have thoughts on the compensation.
Yeah, the thing that's sad is they don't understand the FCS coaches, the Division II and Division III coaches aren't making that kind of money. Group of five coaches are now making pretty good money, but there's very few that are making the big time bucks. And it's a recent phenomenon. It wasn't that way early in my career.
Yeah, two things on that. One, even Division I FBS Power 4 coaches that are assistants don't make $15 million. Just so everyone's clear. And money is relative, right? But they're also not making $15 million.
No.
And two, I always tell people I grew up pretty poor, and they're like, "What? Your dad's a college football coach?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but you have to be a GA and you have to do all these other things that are unpaid actually." And that's when I was growing up. So
right.
People never understand it.
They don't. When my wife Carla and I had our first son, Kyle, once he was born, we qualified for welfare. I was a GA at Arkansas. I was making $325 a month as a GA, and so we qualified for welfare. But no, they don't understand that. And no, even the Power 4 assistant coaches, they are making six figures and high six figures, but which is above 90% of the people in the world. So
for sure.
But it is. You can be unemployed and out of work. And, the neat thing is now even assistants are getting 2-year contracts a lot of times. Yes. So if you're not in the second year of your contract, you have a year sometimes to find a job. But, if you get let go in your 40s, you want to work. So, and it is called the carousel. It's because like a carousel, the music can stop and you don't have a job and you're going to have to find something to do for a year. So, yeah, there's a lot more to it than meets the public's eye.
Yeah, it's also a very small world. People are always like, "Oh, how do you know this?" Or how do you know these people? How do you know these people? While it seems like there's quite a few people in this world, it is a very small knit, very close knit world because people just don't understand this lifestyle, and so you lean on each other. And everyone worked with somebody who knows somebody at another school that they were a GA at. So just kind of how it works. But super fun. All right. What ACC football game are you most looking forward to in week 11?
Well, I'm going to call it ACC because there's one ACC team in it, but Notre Dame versus Pitt is, my game. I'm not going to take the game you choose because I'm going to let you have that. But I think Pitt can win this game. Cade Bell, the offensive coordinator, has Pitt number 1 in the ACC in scoring offense, which is interesting because their yardage numbers aren't that good. but they do play very good special teams, and they play good defense. Randy Bates, the defensive coordinator, I know from his time at Northwestern. Cade Bell, the OC, I know he was at Western Carolina as the OC for his dad, Kerwin Bell, when I was head coach at VMI. But I believe Pitt's number one in rushing defense. So I think they have an opportunity to stop Jeremiah Love and company for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And if they can stop the run and force Carr to throw the ball around, I think Pitt can make that a much closer game than they want it to be. They're starting a freshman quarterback now. He just took over, which is interesting because they had a really good senior quarterback, and now they're going with the freshman. They won last week against BC. He got the first game under his belt. So, I'm looking for the Pitt Notre Dame game. I kind of would like Pitt to win and upset Notre Dame, get Notre Dame out of the playoffs, with the third loss, because, there's a lot of angst by the Miami fans seeing Notre Dame there and they beat them. And, they're both 2-loss teams. So, a loss to Pitt, to me would kind of be the football gods, sorting things out the way they're supposed to be and create chaos for the college football playoff committee. So that's the ACC game I'm looking forward to the most.
No, totally makes sense. Completely agree. Right now, Lewis said Notre Dame is an 11.5-point favorite in this one, which is interesting to me. And I do agree. I think that Pitt can pull off the upset. As the ACC homer that I am hoping that they are pulling off the upset. I'm not rooting for Pitt very often, to be totally transparent, but I will be rooting for them this week. I'm excited to watch that game. I will be watching that game from Miami Gardens at my pick of the week. My dad's game at Miami. NC State travels to Miami this weekend. CJ Bailey's hometown, QB1's hometown. NC State has not lost a game that I have attended this season. And so they will not be losing this one either. Let's go. No, I'm actually very excited for this game. DJ Elliott and his NC State defense has been steadily improving. Honestly, they played very well against Notre Dame. They didn't play so well against Pitt. They played well they played well enough, bend don't break defense against Georgia Tech. And so I'm hoping for a bend don't break defense this weekend against Miami. The offense has put together 2 very good games in a row. Everyone talks about the Georgia Tech game, but matter of fact, if you didn't know, the actual offense that they had during the Pitt game that they did lose was one of the best offensive games my dad has ever had in his career. Not a single play went for a negative yard. So they put together back-to-back together 2 weeks of good offense. And so I am excited to see that offense again one more time, or this week again in CJ Bailey's hometown. So excited for that game. Super excited that I get to go and support. That is my ACC game of the week. But what is your game of the week, whatever it is, outside the ACC?
Yeah, I don't know. When you asked me that, I've been looking, that's what I was looking down for. I haven't really looked at a bunch of others to go. What are some of the top games? And the Alabama game is going to be big against Oklahoma.
Yes. There is honestly not a ton of huge games this week. Like you said, there's the Oklahoma-Alabama one. There's Iowa at USC. There's Texas at Georgia. How could I have forgot? I recapped
that's going to be interesting. I do think Georgia's going to beat them.
Same.
I saw it's not that big a deal. Alabama, Oklahoma is going to be because the material quarterback at Oklahoma, he can run and throw. He's really good. And Oklahoma's playing really good defense. They might be if they're better than LSU on defense. Mateer is a much better quarterback than what LSU had, and I think that Oklahoma could pull the upset over Alabama. That to me is probably the top game that I'll be tuning into and watching. The interesting thing for you to watch with your QB1 is, I remember when we were at Colorado, I was a coaching at Colorado the year after they won the national championship, and we went out west to California to play, and over half our team was from California. And I thought they'd play great because they're back in front of their family and all that stuff. They played terrible. And Coach Mack afterwards says, we won the game, but he always says, yeah, it's always hard when you go back to where you recruit from, because the families are in the hotel, they keep the kids up later, they get them out of their routine. But if it's just your quarterback, you should be fine. I do think that NC State game is going to come down. Can NC State run the ball against Miami's defense? Can they really be a dual threat offense against them? If Miami's defense makes them one-dimensional, I think it'll be tough for NC State to win the game. But I am pulling for them. They have beaten Virginia. They have beaten Louisville, even though the Virginia game doesn't count as a conference game, which is lunacy. It's just no. I mean, no, it counts. And let's move on. But I am pulling for NC State and Kurt Roper and your dad. And I like Coach Doran. I was down in Charlotte for an award ceremony for one of my players at VMI, and he was there as well. And, we were sitting in the hotel getting ready for the ceremony to start. And, I just went and said hello. And, he was unbelievably gracious, had me sit down. We talked. And, I was just so impressed with him that day. And he's a really good football coach. NC State has been a tough place to win. And I also can't let your comment go. Your dad's best game was 0 negative yardage plays, because he's been a lot of games where he scored a lot of points. But as an O-line coach, 0 negative yardage plays mean more to you than scoring points.
Yes. People are like, the offense did so bad. They put up 34 points, which really isn't that bad, right?
No, that's good.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, no, that's actually pretty good. But 0 negative yardage plays. He's like, Savannah, that's only happened. He's been a college football coach for 34 years. He's like, that has maybe happened 3 times ever.
Yeah. I was a wishbone line coach for a long time. And so that happened a little bit more often for us. But no, for a traditional offense, no, 0 negative yardage plays. That doesn't happen. That's rare.
Yeah. So crazy. Yes, Coach Dorn, I do want to hit on that. People definitely don't love Coach Dorn. And as someone whose dad coached for a different ACC team before he coached with Coach Dorn, I'm not sure that my opinion of him was the best either. Not that he cares what my opinion is of him, or did or will ever, but he is truly one of the absolute best people I know. And I will scream that from the rooftops. I love him. He has no need to care about who I am or me as an individual. And he, every single time I see that man, makes me feel important and talks to me about my life and things going on in my life. And I'm so grateful for him and the opportunity that he's given me and my family and my dad. So love him, super grateful for him. It's fun. It's fun. It's very fun. I love him. He's a great coach, good guy, even better man. So definitely have to agree with you on that. But, any final closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think you're doing a great job with the podcast. Are you looking to eventually take this to ESPN someday, sideline reporter, or up in the booth, or what's your end game? Or are you happy just doing the podcast stuff?
My end game. So my undergrad is in sports broadcast journalism. So I do love that. I initially wanted to be a sideline reporter like Erin Andrews. That was my dream job. And then my parents were like, hey, Savannah, they don't make very much money. And I was like, you're right. Like you have to go live in Albuquerque, New Mexico and make like 30K. And I was like, and they're like, Savannah, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. And then I kind of just was like, no, I care more about making money, and obviously life changes. So I don't care about making money now. And now I care about living my dream. So we will see. I want to do something with it. I don't know if it's podcasting forever. I don't know if it's sideline reporting. I do love that. I think it's so fun. I would love to be on ES. I would love it if I could be on College Game Day. That is my real dream.
I want Nick Saban's job. That's what I want. But I'm never going to get that because I didn't win enough games. Although Lee Corso didn't win many, but he got in early.
True.
But, no, I hear you. I think you're doing a great job. And if you ever need, again, if this show has any good ratings, if you need a former coach to come on, I'm more than happy to come on again. But no, nothing. We pretty much covered the full gamut of things tonight, and who knows what's going to happen next week that gets all the fans up in an uproar, and which coach is going to say what. And
Sark said it very well last week. He was like, the whole like 0 to hero thing week in and week out that us coaches feel from like the people is just crazy. It's like, it's either you're the best coach that ever existed because you won this week, or like we need to fire you right now because you suck. And so it's always something. It's always something.
Yeah, it's a true lesson to learn that only one person judges you, and it's Jesus Christ. He sits at the right hand of God, and you should live your life seeking the approval of God, not the approval of men and women, not for likes, not for follows, but for that. And I think as a coach, you learn that really fast, because it's, just look at Jerry Neuheisel, Jerry Neuheisel at UCLA. I mean, 1 week he was the hero, and 2 weeks later, what are we doing? So that happens to all coaches. Deion Sanders, toast of the town, and this year they're talking. Why would you want to fire Deion Sanders at Colorado? I mean, it's hard to win football games. A lot of things happen, and if you got a great coach that's doing a great job, that's changing young men's lives and making a difference, and family man like Coach Doran, you're not going to find a better job. And that's the other thing Sark said. You're going to fire a coach. Who are you going to hire?
Who are you going to hire?
But on the other side of it, I have heard from the administrative people that firing a coach and bringing a new one generates almost as much money incoming as a winning football team. And but nothing changes a university faster than a winning football team. Look at Indiana. Probably have record enrollment requests. They've got sold out stadiums now, and they got record amount of money. All of a sudden they can pay their coach and pay their players. So Texas Tech is another example. So it'll be interesting. A lot of change going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be interesting to watch and see.
Yes, very interesting. And we'll both be here along for the ride, watching and participating. But I appreciate you so much for coming on. This was literally, it's my favorite to have coaches and players and people who work in the industry on. So I appreciate you so much. Before we sign off, where can we find you? Where can we follow you? Where can we see your thoughts? Where can we see your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm at Coach SWACH on Twitter, or X, known as X. And I do most of my football stuff there.
Perfect.
I'm also on Instagram as Coach WACH, because SWCH was taken. And it's, short for Coach S Walk or Coach Walk. But I put most of my football stuff on Twitter. I try to find good, positive stuff. I try to find the positive in everything. I try to repost anything that's been said really well. And I watch way too much football, have way too many opinions. I think most of my opinions are good. But there's a lot of good people like you. That's how I found you. You were out there, and I agreed with a couple of things you were saying, and I thought it was pretty good. And I think it's pretty cool for an offensive line coach's daughter, that's a true football coach, is the O-line coaches, to be on X, putting your opinion out there. I don't know if I like some of the other things you posted, but you got a lot of followers out there but that's okay. I like the football stuff you're doing.
Sorry, yes. You have to appease there's a couple audiences, and I sometimes have to.
You got to be eclectic. You got to have a wide range of Awesome.
No, I appreciate all of your opinions tonight, and they were positive, and I feel the same. I do my best to always keep it positive and lighthearted, and choose the things that are shedding light on the positives of coaches and football families and things like that. So thank you so much for coming on. If you don't follow already, please like, subscribe, follow both of us on Twitter. And we're so grateful for you were here tonight.